Hey guys, my name is Eric, and today we're going to be talking about all the different types of ranging. Go ahead and roll the intro. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another HatchetCast episode. And today is a special episode because we have just concluded the 2024 Minuteman Carbine Symposium. And I have Adrian with Sidewinder Concepts here with me. And he is a really good resource for long range shooting. And so today we're going to be talking about ranging and different methods that you can use as well as equipment. Before we get started, make sure you go check out Adrian's channel over on YouTube, Sidewinder Concepts. And also go ahead and like and subscribe to this video. If you get something out of it, make sure you share it with a friend, and also go over and check out Adrian's channel. He has a lot of really good resources, especially if you're thinking about getting into long range shooting, or if you have a guy that you select on your team in your community that's going to be the marksman for your group. Also, if you have any other ways of ranging or have any experiences or knowledge to share, put it in the comment section below, because we can all benefit off of that knowledge, and it's a great place to be. So without further ado, Adrian, welcome.
Welcome, guys. So again, like he mentioned, we're going to be talking about different ranging tools. So we're going to start from kind of like the high tech and then drop down into more of the traditional ways so that you can always get that range for those targets. The background, I come from the long range community from the military, and I'm going to share some of those skills and tasks with you guys.
Yeah, if you guys wait till the end of the video, some of the methods for ranging that we're going to use is a skill set that a lot of snipers around the world, militaries and law enforcement, utilize without giving up their signature. So if you watch the entire video, towards the end, we will be getting into that. So
100%. And we're going to go through pros and cons of some of these different devices that we have here on the table, and what to look out for and why you need to have alternate methods of ranging, because honestly, the range is the most important part to any of this stuff. We have ballistic calculators that can give us trajectory. We got speed drop methods. We have all that stuff, but we can't really apply any of that unless we have a baseline of range to get that bullet to connect to that target.
So what are some of the equipment pieces that we see that all across the industry that are kind of almost a fad right now, especially just because it's more available, but like kind of like something like the Vortex Impact 4000?
So yeah, laser rangefinders that are mounted onto a rifle. This is becoming more and more popular. We have great options like this, like you said, the Vortex right here that in particular are affordable.
Very affordable.
So in the military, we had weapon-mounted rangefinders. These things were great because it equates to more speed. So we can get on target way faster. We can get that information a lot quicker, especially when they have a ballistic solver built into it. But all laser rangefinders do have limitations, and a lot of that comes from the weather.
Wow.
So weather plays a pretty massive role with any rangefinder.
Yeah.
I personally didn't care for the ballistic portion of these rangefinders. I still rather go hard data or pulling from my Kestrel and then just using this as a dedicated rangefinder only. But what's cool about these weapon-mounted ones is that they are co-witness to the reticle of your optic, meaning once you guys go through the zeroing process for the optic to the laser, generally anything that you're pointing at with your reticle, you can just hit this nice little fancy button here or one of the actuating buttons on top, and you'll see on the screen that it just pops up a range for you. So however you equate your trajectory data to go with that range is then what you apply next.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was crazy about the Vortex, like we were talking about earlier, is the price point. A
Hmm.
lot of the LRFs that were mounted on rifles prior to this coming out were north of $8,000. So it was pretty much unobtainable for a large demographic of us, the shooters, who don't have $8,000 laying around to be able to spend on something like this. So the fact that Vortex came out with an affordable option honestly just makes the entire community a lot more capable and have access to equipment that makes you a lot more effective. So, what are some of the things you talked about weather? What are some of the limitations to just rangefinders in general, and also maybe specifically weapon-mounted laser rangefinders?
Let's talk about the pros, and then
Yeah,
we can talk about some of the I'm not going to call them like cons or negatives, but just considerations.
right.
Pros, everything is all consolidated into one device, meaning that you can stay behind the gun, you can stay through the optic, and you can be a lot faster. We have the ability to get our range. Generally, these rangefinders are a lot stronger, so not only do they have a faster response time, but they will reach out a distance. The next great thing is when it's weapon mounted, you have the reticle as a refined aiming point rather than, like a handheld style that when you go up there to laze and you got that big crosshair that's inside of there to
Mm,
try to try to get refined on whatever it is that you're aiming at. Now, some of the cons. All laser rangefinders are going to be dependent on the weather. So if it's a foggy and rainy day, it's going to have a very hard time punching through that. If you're going through a lot of vegetation or you're hiding in a wood line or any of that kind of stuff, it's going to have a hard time punching through that. But generally, the stronger the laser, the tighter that beam is, so it can get through some of that stuff.
mm.
As far as weapon mounted rangefinders, the biggest thing that you guys got to remember, and I see this problem all the time. Remember, when you have a weapon mounted rangefinder, it is co-witnessed with the reticle, meaning that if you start to try to dial your data, you're going to shift that reticle, which means that wherever that laser was co-witnessed at is no longer at that point,
Interesting.
and you can't use it as a aiming device anymore.
Mm,
So if you are going to be the guy that dials, which is fine, you just have to add an extra step in your process of go all the way back down to 0 or dump your dope, lays, then you can reapply and go from there. But it's an extra step. So
mm.
if you're conscious of all your your shot process steps, then you can go through that.
I mean, some of the things also from a conflict perspective is, we see this a lot with flashlight shooting at night, but
Hmm.
smoke and battlefield haze and
Yep.
powder and all that
Yep.
stuff is going to be something else you have to consider, not just the weather. You're going to have all of the things in a wartime type environment that's going to be obscuring that target as well.
Right, and these are all just considerations on how you set up your rifle.
Yeah.
And here's another one coming from the stalking perspective. Not only do you have much more to work with, right? Because in concealment, we say to conceal anything that's 1 m away or bigger. So
Right.
if you're at 400 yards away concealed, you want to conceal anything that's 4 inches or bigger.
Right.
um, this creates a lot more avenue for stuff to get caught into when you're moving around. So it is a bigger profile. So you get more accessibility with range and you gain speed, but you lose a little bit of mobility and compactness.
Mm.
From there, it's the weight. Some of these things are a little bit heavier, and um, if you're not training for that weight and making sure that you're not going to fatigue, these things can get a little heavy, especially when you go to heavier barrels and all the other gizmos that you want to put on here. It adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's something that I've talked about a lot on the channel. A lot of guys, especially in the community, get wrapped around like, oh, how much does it weigh? If you usually want more capability, it's going to come with weight. That's just one of those
Right.
things. So understand that's got to be something in your decision making process when you're buying something like this, or maybe the guy who's going to be the marksman within your group has to consider maybe instead of giving him extra batteries and extra equipment for the group to carry, he already has enough weight with his own equipment because of his specialty within the team. So just keeping that as a consideration is going to be important.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, and like you said, batteries is another consideration.
Yeah.
These things are stronger and they tend to go quicker.
One of the things that I did notice about this, specifically, we have a lot of like scope covers with glass.
Hmm.
I have this rectangular reflective glass on the front. So
Yeah.
what are some things to mitigate that, or
Um,
maybe just take it off, use
there's
it,
a
and cover it?
there's a company called MKM Machining,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, and they make an ARD for these.
really.
And testing it out on this particular rangefinder, that ARD, an anti-reflective device, is a honeycomb design up there that helps to break down that glare.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that, and it does not impede the laser capabilities of that platform.
Oh, okay.
So that's a great one, and it has a flap that goes with it. So
Oh,
you can cover it up so that you don't have to worry about scratching it, denting it, breaking it, any of that stuff. So you have the ARD plus a flip cap that goes with it, and you can conceal the whole thing.
now, one of the things is we had a couple of guys from the community that went to the Tactical Game Sniper Challenge,
Hmm.
and one of their feedback points was is that the dudes that did have laser rangefinders mounted on their rifles had a extreme advantage in terms of speed. Like the top guys who placed in that match were all running LRFs on the rifle. So it does say something as far as speed goes that
Well, and it's environment based.
right.
What we see when you guys look at the commonality of ranges across America is they don't really have obstructions. They're nice bowling alleys that we
Yeah.
can work with because for safety purposes.
Right.
And in that case, if you're doing competitions or you're at your local range, there's not really going to be a lot of things in the way. So that rangefinder is going to be highly effective and increase your speed to each shot and each impact and all
Mm.
that good stuff. Again, these are just all considerations. It just depends on the role that you're fitting.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you talked about with software, ballistic calculators, and things of that nature, Vortex actually has what's called Geo Ballistics. You can
Hmm.
download the app on your phone, and you can add in different rifle profiles on this. It does also have a compass, so you do have to calibrate it, and it'll give you an actual heading whenever you do your range.
Right.
There are some limitations to that, and we actually did a live video talking about all the different features when it comes to this, as well as how to zero this thing. But it's something else that is more of a resource for you to be able to kind of utilize this on multiple different weapon systems. So with the rangefinders kind of sticking within that realm, what are some other rangefinders that are handheld are more common that could be used as a tool?
Yeah. So pretty much every other device at that point is going to be something that's not connected to the rifle itself, and so now we have different handheld devices. Again, there's pros and cons to all of this, and most of it is, again, I don't want to call it cons, they're more
Considerations.
considerations. Probably the most common at the moment is going to be a pair of binos that have the laser rangefinder in it. This seems to be at a price point that most people can work with, and
Yeah.
it has a lot of effectiveness within these. So obviously we have a bino aspect to it, and we don't really need to talk about that at the moment. But this also has ranging capability. This uh, I believe this one itself has the ballistic calculator built in. So essentially, you'll look downrange, you'll hit your laze button, it'll give you the distance, and then shortly after, it'll give you a mill hold for your rifle.
Yeah.
This tends to be one of the most effective, and it keeps your rifle lightweight
Mm.
because you don't have extra stuff on there. And if you don't necessarily need your rifle at the moment, in like a hunting perspective, you're just trying to get an idea of different terrain you're working with, or how far is that animal and stuff like that. And you can, get an idea of what you need to do, and you can scan and do all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
So these are really good. The other cool thing is with it being a bigger body, they tend to have a stronger laser in it. So it can punch through more stuff. It can reach further out there. It can give you more information to work with.
Mm. So one of the things about this specifically, this was sent to us actually by Big Tech's Ordnance, so shout out to them. Go check out the links in the description. But as far as this is considered, this is the Sig Sauer Kilo 10. We've talked about this multiple times throughout many different videos, but it has the Applied Ballistics app inside of it. So it's actually a
Hmm.
licensed Applied Ballistics inside of this thing. There is a thing you can put onto your phone, an app that pairs the binoculars with your phone, and also it comes with their version of a Kestrel. So you
Yes.
can actually get wind meters inside of this. It'll give you a wind reading.
Yeah, Bluetooth to that so that
Yes.
you can have a little device off to the side.
Right.
It'll Bluetooth to that, give you basic wind and all that other stuff.
Correct. And the cool thing about this is I've actually put all my bullet profiles, all that information into this, and to test this, I actually dialed every single reading I was given to the
Hmm.
tenth of a mil, and it was
pretty
responding
spot on.
is really accurate.
This one and the Vortex version of this are the two most common
Yeah.
at the moment in NRL Hunter, guys who are going out just
Mhm.
hunting in general. A lot of military guys are starting to use them like crazy.
Yeah.
Just be careful about that
Yeah.
Bluetooth
Can you
stuff.
talk about that real quick? That's actually kind of an interesting thing, just in terms of signature.
Bluetooth and EW. EW being electronic warfare is no bueno. So, um, I don't know if that's a different video to talk about or
It's
like
just something.
we're ranging
It's a
right now.
consideration. It's
It
a
is a
consideration.
consideration from the tactical perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of capabilities all in one device. Now let's talk about the considerations, right?
Hey.
These are a little heavy,
Yeah.
so if you have them on the side of a pack, make sure that, or like a chest rig or whatever, you got enough on an opposite side to kind of balance you out.
Right.
They do weigh a lot more than they do weigh a lot more than another standard set of binos. The other thing, again, from my perspective, is that most range finding binos tend to not be as crystal clear as a dedicated
Set of
set of
binos.
binos.
Interesting.
They have a little bit more crisp glass,
Mm-hmm.
and again, for me personally, I want that HD capability.
Right.
There's more data I get to see, there's more feedback I get, there's more all of the above that I can see from spotting, trace, all that stuff, and I tend to still want to go back to a standard handheld.
Right.
I see the pros with this. I love them, like, because
Mhm.
I've ran these types before, but I want a little bit from what I'm doing. I want a little bit more than 10 power.
Right.
Every bino on the market that I know of that's range finding are all 10 power. I haven't found one except for the new Vectronics that has screw-on 2x extra that'll bring it to a 12 power.
Yeah.
And I've always asked the question, why?
Mm.
Why is it a 12 or why isn't it more power if the laser is strong enough to go beyond a mile?
Right.
Like I need the magnification to see that stuff or
Right.
to get that detail, and like if we're putting that much power in the laser, why not give it a little bit more magnification?
One of the things that I'll do is I'll just have a shooting plate on a
Mm-hmm.
tripod and a sand or a shooting bag, and I'll just rest it. So it's good for spotting. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like having a little bit more magnification would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vortex actually has a spotting scope, or not a what is it? A monocular
Yes.
spotting scope that has a reticle and rangefinder in it. That's a etched rangefinder.
Mm-hmm.
That is also another resource, but I think it's 15 power.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
15
so
power.
pretty
And
impressive.
the cool part is like it would be maybe funky looking, but that compact rangefinder, what's cool about it is it has the 1/4 inch screw holes on it, so you can mount some different mounting devices. That way you could put the impact on top of that and have
Mm,
one compact thing that is co-witness to that
wow.
reticle that's in there,
Right.
making it a very highly effective, almost it would honestly be about the same height as this,
Wow.
with the rangefinder on top and that little like recon um, spotting scope that
Yeah.
has adjustable focus, and you don't have to worry about turrets that you're adjusting because it's fixed
Yeah.
as a little
Interesting.
spotting device,
Huh.
and it has it on both sides, meaning that you could put an arca plate to tripod mount it, or and you can have the impact for 1,000 on it on as well.
One of the considerations for this specifically also, rangefinder, batteries. So make sure you have
Yes,
plenty of batteries to be able to replace. Otherwise, you'll just have a good set of binos, essentially.
right. Which they still serve a role rather than it just being a
That's
paperweight,
true. Hey,
right?
that's true.
Because
Yeah.
if it's a standalone or a weapon mounted and it runs out of batteries, essentially it's just a paperweight at that point.
Right.
So at least these, if they die, uh, your EMP,
EMP for.
yeah, EMP stuff, it'll still function.
Yeah. What?
Type
So
thing.
you have this traditional handheld
Yes.
rangefinder. What are some of the considerations and things to think about with these?
All right. So pros, it's compact and it's light. So
Affordable.
and a lot more affordable than some of these other devices. The reason why I personally like these is I want to be able to tuck them into kit, right, without it being heavy, and this will fit into most like SR25 mag pouches, or you can get any other kind of basic range finding pouch or
Fanny
DP
pack.
pouch, fanny packs,
Yeah.
whatever, and you can get that information quickly. So it kind of depends on the role that you're playing
Mhm.
or the mission set that you're working with. But these ones tend to be a lot easier to just keep compact or keep on a belt and it not bother me.
Mm.
And that's more or less the reason why I like it versus these what I would normally carry in a backpack
Right.
unless I'm running a dedicated bino harness. If I'm running a dedicated bino harness, then rock these all day.
Right.
But if I'm running, a whole bunch of mags on a chest rig and I got all this other sustainment based stuff, then this is probably not going to be on me per se, and it'd
Yeah.
be more in a backpack, and then it just becomes more of a process to get that range a lot quicker.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I have run these before on, actual training missions and stuff, and they take up an entire space on the GP pouch or general purpose pouch on my chest rig,
Mm-hmm.
and on the other one I have night vision. So, you end up having where it's like you got a couple of big pieces of equipment that you're using a lot. It's just some considerations you need to have.
Yeah.
So, all right, back to that. Sorry.
All right, so now some of these also these traditional handheld ones also have the ballistics capability built into them. Uh, Not this version, but other versions will have the applied ballistics connected to it, doing the same thing that this does. So it'll Bluetooth to either your phone or a Kestrel, and essentially once you get your range, it'll feed the range to you, and then it'll feed the mill hold after you calibrated your rifle's information to it.
Mm.
This one in particular being the new RX 5000 from Leupold, Bluetooth to Onyx Hunt. So for the hunters out there or guys that want to send pinpoint information on terrain to each other,
Right.
because you can download certain maps and areas with Onyx Hunt. This also works with Google Maps and Apple Maps.
Interesting.
So it'll pin drop onto your phone after you lays that location and give you
Where the
again
target's at on a map.
where the target's at, or if you're trying to co-locate to a certain peak or a valley or whatever, instead of it just looking at a map and then making sure everybody is on the same page to converge, you can just send that information to each other, and then boom, everybody just follows that waypoint, and it'll give you a track on how to get there.
Really?
So, I mean, that's more the Onyx Hunt feature, but this will create that spot. And for the hunters, the other cool feature about that is if you put down an animal and it, as it moves off that target spot, you can follow it before you have to just sit there and go and track all the blood trails. So it's like, hey, I saw it go down about right there, and we know that if we're in a slightly elevated position or whatever our perspective is from where we took the shot is probably going to look completely different once we go down range towards that area. We don't know what kind of defilade and dead space there is in between where the shot was taken and where that target landed.
Two-legged animal. Like a kangaroo,
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there are some, like we talked a little bit about, like what about spotting scopes? Where did those really come into play? I mean, obviously that comes in with reticles, but I know a lot of people get spotting scopes on Amazon, kind of get them cheap, or even these types of handheld rangefinders. What is the consideration for buying something that's a little bit cheaper
On a ranging
on a
perspective.
ranging perspective?
So there are spotting scopes with reticles,
Mhm.
which is nice. So you can use the traditional method with the reticle itself. Some spotting scopes have the ability to mount the weapon mounted rangefinders, but they can be spotting scope mounted rangefinders. That way you can co-witness the laser from the rangefinder to the reticle of the optic, and it gives you, two capabilities. You can go traditional and you can go more advanced.
Right.
The other thing is there's some people make 3D printed stuff that'll mount to the bottom, or it'll clamp onto one of these, and then you can put them right next to a spotting scope. So
Okay.
you can look through your spotting scope, and then you just kind of like look over. A lot of guys will get some kind of plate and put the two together. Like everybody uses the mud plates because
Yeah.
they're pretty compact. and they have all like the M-lock slots on it.
Okay.
So you can mount this on one side, you could do a pair of binos, or you could do a spotting scope right next to it. And when that's mounted on a tripod, you have your, obviously your spotting. This will be generally pointed in the same direction, and then, you can get your range.
So, I mean, if you bought, like, let's just say, I know on Amazon they probably have some like 40 or $50 ones, or maybe a golfing one. What are
Mhm.
some of the considerations whenever you're buying a cheaper rangefinder? Is it less accurate? Is that something that,
All right.
like,
So this is where you guys need to really pay attention. When you look at rangefinders, you have to go down to the specs. Now, when you look at the specs, if it's a company doing the right thing, they're always going to label its max ranging capability off of three major things. You have off of man-made objects, so something that's reflective, which is generally going to be where it can go the furthest.
right,
You have off of um, semi
obscured? Oh,
reflective or obscured things
yeah,
like trees, and then you have things that are not reflective at all, like deer fur,
right.
and it has a different capability based off of the strength of that rangefinder. Now, for me personally, I always look at the lowest one. If the lowest one being like deer fur meets the range capability that I need it to, then I would call that good. So when you guys see the like impact 4000, and it generally means 4000 meters, it's like, no, that's a perfect scenario where it's a highly reflective target, and that rangefinder is dead nuts still, and it's not shaking or anything like that.
Mm.
Probably something tripod mounted, and it is a perfect scenario.
Yeah,
So does that mean that's what you're going to get all the time? Probably not. If
right.
you're moving around and all that other stuff, it's not going to do that. Now, can you get 2,000 meters pretty easily? Yeah, 100%. 100%. You can handhold that and get those distances, but
Mm,
those are those considerations.
mm,
So my general rule of thumb is when you guys see the big number, like on this one it says, RX 5000. This one is, I think it's a 35 or a 4000.
mm,
10K, sorry, 10,000.
yeah,
And then that's the impact 4,000. Usually they use that 1,000 number as its max capability, but that's at a perfect, stable scenario
yeah.
on something reflective.
Kind of like with barrels when they say, hey, it's sub MOA, it's because they're using primo ammo and a vice and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or box ammo given velocities that
Yeah.
are all off of like something extremely long to make those numbers go up,
Yeah, bump them up a little bit.
bump them up. But
Um,
yeah, no, just look at those three different specs, and again, the tip that I give everybody is look at it from the deer fur perspective. If at the minimum capability level meets your standard that you're looking for, so like let's say 1,000 yard shooting,
mm.
then that should be generally good for you.
One of the things that's interesting that I study the Ukraine war and what's happening over in that
Oh, so
that
yeah,
European
from
theater.
from from that perspective,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's tech out there. I know a lot of the Russian equipment has that capability where if you laze that area, it'll
Detect it.
alert everybody to exactly where you were at, and so now you have to laze things that are in front of or around it that are not
Yeah.
directly on it, because it can be sensed, like it's got like a bubble sensor that will tell you exactly where those lasers are coming from, which is part of the reason of where my dope cards came from. There's a big story behind that one,
Interesting.
from some situation that happened in Afghanistan.
Huh.
So that's why I created these dope cards, to go back to hard data, because lasers are amazing, and there's counter capabilities against them.
Right. For us, especially as, trying to be capable citizens, trying to be Minuteman warriors, this is something to consider. A
Mm.
lot of guys will get stuff and it's like, oh, well, that capability may never be something I have to encounter. You always need to train for or prepare yourself for every type of contingency and have a plan for it. So if you're going to get this type of equipment, understanding the limitations, the considerations, the signatures provided, the pros, and using it to its max effective capability are things that every guy who's the marksman in the group or the sniper in the group needs to make sure that they're spun up on. There's a couple of tools that are coming out now. This one's actually a more recent one, and you guys have heard me talk about this on my kit loadout video about a passive way to find range, but this is actually from Black Hill Designs, and it is a Ranger card. So it will come with a string, an 18-inch string, and what you'll do is you'll tie a knot on the end of it, and on the other side you'll put it through the hole and then tie a knot again. What you can do is it has different types of objects, so a man or a door or a truck or a high fence, and you'll pretty much take your string, put it in your mouth, and hold that up and measure that object within your card, and it will give you a generalized distance in meters. So this is a very quick way to kind of get not a super refined, but a generalized understanding of distance. And then you can kind of refine that, with whatever other equipment you have, or use maybe a milling method. But
Right.
super useful tool.
And essentially what it is it's just a calibrated height type thing. So wherever that object fits closest to that number gives you a rough estimate of distance.
It's super light, and it's also, I think, like $10. So
Right.
it's almost like, why not just have it in your kit,
Right, and you guys can, keep it in a GP pouch type
Right.
thing. There's other reticles out there, like Primary Arms is really good at making quick reference based things inside your reticle, similar to what this does, where, if a object, i.e. a two-legged animal, fits within a certain bracket, it gives you generally a rough estimate of a distance. Once we know the distance, then we generally know what kind of hold we need for connecting a projectile to that target.
Nice.
To put it lightly.
So if I wanted to get a more refined distance utilizing my reticle, what could I consider?
All right, so the traditional method that has always works generally out to about 800-ish, is the mill relation formula. So there's the formula based off of meters and the formula based off of yards. So the way that looks, it is target size in inches times 25.4, which is for the constant for meters, whatever that comes out to, divide that by your mill reading. So you're going to measure the target with your reticle, and then that's what you'll divide that top number from, and that'll equal your distance in meters.
Okay.
Now for yards, it's generally the same thing, but the constant's going to change. So it'll be target size in inches times 27.77 divided by your mill reading equals your distance in yards.
So cool. Well, let's maybe get the camera angles. We'll take a look at that. If you made it this far in the video, this is the type of meet that you guys want to watch, especially if you're going to be the marksman or the designated guy who's going to be shooting far distances in your group.
All right, so let's break out the whiteboard. All right, going back into the formula that we want to look at. So for meters, we go, target in inches times 25.4 for your meters, and this is the constant for meters divided by mill reading equals distance in meters. All right, so the way that would work is if we are looking at a full-size target is generally 40 inches, so it would be 40 times your 25.4 divided by your mill reading, and we can pull out a calculator for that, 1016. So, and then the way you guys would do this, it'd be 1016 divided by whatever your mill reading is. So on this first target right here, we can come down, we can measure, and you measure from the top edge of the target. So you measure from the top edge of the target to the bottom edge of the target with your reticle. In this case, it is exactly, it's like 2.9 mils. So you divide it by 2.9 equals, so our target is at 350 meters. Get your data, apply it to the scope, hit the target. Now, if you wanted to do this with yards, so we can erase this and we'll do it again, just because repetition is how we remember things, right?
So if you need to watch this over again, hit rewind and watch it again, and we'll start over.
All right, so again, we'll do this for yards because this is what most people are doing. It goes your target size in inches times 27.7 and that's going to be your yards divided by your mil reading. Now we're just going to fill everything in. So if we're looking at a full-size target, or if we want to go horizontal of a full-size target, it's 20 inches wide.
Okay.
So you need to know the inches of the target in order to go through the formula, which is what's going to bring us to our next little cool device. But we need to understand the formula first.
Right.
So if we're going horizontal, because maybe our target is just peeking over a berm and all we can see is horizontal from shoulder to shoulder.
So 20 inches wide is how typically.
And we'll go through those basic measurements here in a minute. But yeah, shoulder to shoulder. So we know we're working with a 20-inch target times our 27.7 equals. And it helps to have a, like one of those Casio dollar store.
But I got one of the Casio watches.
Yeah.
The little calculator watch.
The little calculator on the watch there. So 27 times 27.7 equals 554. You take your 554 divided by our mil reading. So we'll bring this guy down here so you guys can see. And we're going from edge of the shoulder to edge of the shoulder. So I don't necessarily line it up. I always go right here. That way you can use the whole vertical line on that side right there to make sure it's straight. Because if the target is, leaning or whatever, you want to articulate your reticle to go with the movement of the target.
Right. Use it as a straight edge.
So we're using that. We can see that we're at, so 1, that's 1.5. And it's just shy of 1.8. So we're going to call it 1.7. So divided by 1.7. We'll pull our calculator up again. Divide by 1.7 equals 325 yards. For the same target, we can see that we're at roughly that
325
yards.
Now that we know the distance of a target or to a target, we need the measurement of the target itself. How do we get that information?
All right, so this is a pretty important one from the reconnaissance standpoint. So let's say we do have rangefinders, right? We can get an exact measurement to that target, or we're using a map and all that other stuff, but maybe we need to know the size of that target. Maybe size is part of the PID process, whether it be from a building, a structure, a vehicle type. Like if they got customizable parts on there, we know that, it's going to be it's going to fit a certain profile. So you can still use your reticle in order to find the size of the target utilizing a rangefinder, or if you milled the target to generally get a rough estimate distance.
Right. And PID being positively identified.
Yeah.
For our viewers that don't know.
Right. And it could even be, you got guys forward and they're in that area and they can't measure it for you per se.
Right.
But you know that their GPS location from your GPS location gives you that distance and stuff like that. So the way that looks is it'll be your distance times your mils, and you're going to divide that by the constant being for yards or meters. In this case, I'll just do it for yards.
Right.
So that'll be your, your 27.7 for yards. So, pick a distance.
460.
All right, so we got 460. Let's say that this guy that we're looking at on here is at 460. We'll look at this guy. So we'll line it up right on the very top edge. And you have to be very refined. It's pretty easy to skew those distance numbers or size if you don't pay attention to how refined. It's not just a round up, round down. Like, you need to be exact. It is very sensitive. So on here, that's 1.2, or excuse me, it's 2.2 right there, but it looks like it goes just over the line, so I'm going to call it like a 2.25. So our mils is 2.25, and we're going to divide by our 27.7, and let's see how many inches this target is. So 460 times 2.25 equals the 1,035 divided by 27.7 equals, that target is 37.36 inches. Now we have this information. So if you're trying to get the size of a building, if you're trying to map out certain key data points on whatever it is you're looking at, you can go through this process to start measuring the target rather than having to be on the target itself with a measuring tape and all this other stuff.
Right.
Because maybe you need to uh, confirm satellite footage
Mm,
and size references so that your team or whoever needs that information knows the truth on the ground versus just what you see with a drone per se.
right. And I mean, a lot of the snipers traditionally in the military role of the sense of the word was specifically to be able to provide and relay information, right?
Yeah.
To get eyes on targets or get eyes on objectives and areas to be able to provide information back to a commanding element that was
Hmm.
able to make now an informed decision about an operation and things of that nature.
Right, and a lot of it is just confirming other intelligence.
Right.
So, how much has the terrain changed since the last time that satellite imagery took pictures?
Yeah.
Um, or if you need to really just get dimensions. So, if you need to figure out what size element or figure out if vehicles can fit in certain areas, right? Maybe you need to park trucks or other larger vehicles into an alleyway, but how wide is that alleyway? And you
Mm,
can do that based off of simple things like this,
yeah.
which to me is pretty cool.
Yeah. And also it's passive, so it doesn't give off any signature.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Makes you highly effective. It's a lot of information to utilize as your own version of analytics. And again, like you said, it's passive. So you don't have to worry about it being something that's going to get you necessarily caught.
Right. So one of the things, obviously, if you're going to be doing all that math with inside the reticle and ranging, something that would be handy to have on hand, maybe in a map pouch or in a general purpose pouch, is probably pen and notebook to be
Yes.
able to write all this information down.
Yes, 100%. And we see a lot of people, all throughout the interwebs, talking about carrying certain little, you know, annotating devices that you can use for this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
taking notes on what's going on, blah blah blah, and just keeping that in a GP pouch. So one of the cool things is, we just talked about you need to know the inches of a target or an object in order to utilize that formula. So
Yeah.
there are companies out there like Sobachek Security that makes these cards that you guys can run, and we'll get a close up on here. Essentially what it is various objects that we see in everyday life that have the inches of that object. So on this one in particular, we got stop sign, we got a fire hydrant, different common steel targets that we would see out there, some basic vehicles.
Yeah.
We have mailbox, some animals like cattle or deer, things that we would again normally see,
Right.
so that we can use it as a general reference to get that distance. Because again, the way we started this is the most important thing in long range shooting is knowing your distance in order to apply the trajectory data that we need. We can get trajectory data on so many different platforms, so many cheat sheets, whatever, but none of that is going to matter unless you know the distance to that target, so you know what to apply for that distance.
Right. Yeah. And so one of the things talking about on this card specifically, they have the wind value on here. Can you talk a little bit about that as well as some of the stuff that's on the back?
All right, so they have a essentially a cosine chart for wind up in the top right corner. This just gives you, once you understand the direction of where the wind is coming from, you apply that cosine, you take your wind value, so whatever you're getting at that speed. So if it's like 10 miles an hour coming from the 45 up front on here, it tells you, multiply it by 0.5, which is your cosine, and that's going to be your corrected wind value. So
Right.
again, it's more hard data stuff to help you out with, basic things that you don't always need the tech in order to be effective.
Right.
So don't get sucked into the tech. It's amazing. We love the tech. It helps out like crazy. It's very, very accurate, but we should also have a foundation of hard data as well.
Yeah.
As we get on the back right here, again, we have all these common objects up on the top that you guys can see. And then we have the distances correlating to those. So you don't have to do the formula. All you have to do is just go across and you can see all the mills that you would normally be reading, and then it correlates to a distance. So
Right.
just like any, graph, or, you got your top line with your horizontal line, they meet together.
Go
It
down
gives you,
5 over 5.
yeah,
There
it
you
gives
go.
you your information right there. Again,
Right.
it's more of a cheat sheet. So it's like if I'm the spotter, I know that we're looking at a target. It goes, hey shooter, how many mils are you reading? And you're talking to your shooter, and then I have this right here. Cool, you got um, 5.1 for a truck that targets at 375 yards.
Right.
And then you can apply your data, or I can give you your data for that elevation hold.
Right.
So again, it's just trying to expedite the process on hard data style systems, which brings us to the Sidewinder card.
Hey.
I have a DMR card specifically for this. And
Nice.
one of the problems that I was seeing is guys were getting too reliant on the tech per se. Again, tech is very useful, but it was starting to turn into
Crutch.
a crutch
Yeah.
where guys would either stop training because the tech wasn't working, and it's like, well, I need to go figure out what's going on, blah blah blah, and or I was getting stories from overseas of
And costing lives, essentially.
yes,
Yeah.
which is kind of the storyline behind all the dope cards that I design. I'm not gonna go like that in depth into it, but
Sure.
essentially a team of guys was up in the mountains. From my understanding, the rangefinder kind of they were lasing a target, and a auto locking system targeted their location, and bad things happened. But I started getting calls back from guys in different units uh, because where we were training a lot of old school techniques on no tech, and somewhat developed a little bit of a reputation up there. And they wanted to know what we were doing to still be effective.
Right.
How was my section still effective at performing their operations and having very minimal stuff? So all we had were handheld rangefinders and a rifle. We didn't have the fancy tech. We didn't have weapon mounted rangefinders. We didn't have all the ATAC and all that other stuff like all the other guys did. We did not.
Yeah.
And so we had to go through training techniques to be effective against those guys in training without having that. And a lot of that came down to how can I get information onto these cards that are highly useful and quick for the guys that we have. The most effective card that I have currently is going to be the what I call the DMR card. So this gives you all the different aspects of a two-legged animal.
Kangaroo.
Yep.
Yep.
Referenced on here. So we know that, when rounds start flying around, targets get small, low percentage. Right. So we have between low percentage and then fully exposed, so on and so forth. We just talked about the mill relation formula. So we know that the top portion being target size in inches times either the constant of 25.4 or 27.7 in yards is going to give you a whole number up there.
Right.
So I did the math for you that you can see right here on this section. So essentially, whatever you're looking at, you pick that reference. So let's say we're looking at a 10-inch zone. And if you're going in yards, I already did that top number for you. So you just take that, divide it by your mill reading, which it says right here, equals your distance.
Yeah.
If you're working in meters for that zone, I already gave you your top number, divided by your mill reading gives you your distance. So we have a quick referencing chart here. You still need a cheap calculator from the dollar store or Five Below or anything like that.
Casio calculator watch.
There you go.
Pick one up.
And we have guys that did like to do that because they're writing down and they can just poke it with their pens or whatever. And then on the far right side is just one of the forms of quick rapid engagement techniques that you can do, which is just mill and make 5. So it uses a 12-inch reference. All you do is mill from the shoulders of that kangaroo to the top.
Very stout.
Yeah,
kangaroo.
from the shoulders to the top of the head, and you make 10.
Right.
So, and I already gave you that information. So if you milled 5, you're going to hold 5 mils for that target,
right,
and go right there.
Okay.
So that's how you make 10. And if it's a faster gun, you'll just mill and make 9.
Right.
So mill the shoulders, whatever that equates to make 9 as a whole number, and then you go from there.
So, I mean, the other thing also that's cool about these cards specifically is they're cut almost like index cards, which if you use like a
3x5,
like a quarterback sleeve,
standardized 3x5 card,
you can run it inside of that.
And they're sold on the Sidewinder Concepts website. You can order them as individual cards. So if you want very specific, and then you can order them build your own packs essentially.
Right.
And we have all sorts of different ones. A lot of them are tactical oriented, so quick ranging for movers. It's got all your stuff for distance on here and things like that. We got wind cards. We got just traditional
Dope cards.
dope cards,
Yeah.
and then we have some competition oriented cards as well.
Nice.
So guys, go check them out. It helps out having hard data. The easiest way to laminate these is honestly just get a masking tape, and it'll fit two one up here, one down here, and then flip it over, same thing, cut it out, throw it in there, and then it'll last rather than making them disposable.
The cool thing is you also left these blank on the back, and I use these for notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then and I did that intentionally.
Yeah.
Some guys asked me why not put the stuff on there. The cool thing is that if you're always taking notes and this is laminated, or it goes into your quarterback sleeve with that lamination on top,
Yeah.
you can use grease pencils.
Yeah.
And you can take all your notes and treating it kind of like a whiteboard.
Right.
So lots of information that you can utilize these with. It'll fit a lot of roles, and it's always good to have hard data. Always have hard data as a backup to the tech.
Yeah.
The tech is great, but we also want hard data as a form of management of our equipment. Keeps us effective.
To your point, like I said, I study the war in Eastern Europe a lot right now, and a lot of old school techniques are being utilized because there's so much tech on both sides between what the West is providing to what the Russians have for their 21st century type of technology. And so you see these techs are almost kind of like evenly matched. And so you're seeing old school techniques being utilized to be able to counter a lot of the technology, and it's also becoming extremely effective. And so old school techniques are something that the military is also right now scrambling, trying to figure out how to re-implement within the force, because there is a huge reliance and a crutch on technology. So, ATACs and high-speed radio equipment and all these, rangefinders are cool, but everything has a failure point, and Murphy will always have his say at the end. So you got to make sure you account for Murphy. For guys who don't know Murphy's Law, go check it out. But this old school techniques for guys who are DMR guys or snipers within their groups, take this stuff seriously, practice it, and try it out. Pick up some of these Sidewinder concept cards and start training on it. But Adrian, any final words that you had for the viewers as words of wisdom?
Fundamentals, man. We see it all the time. Guys overlook that skill set.
Yeah.
So fundamentals and an understanding of a strong foundation, and then it's easy to just stack all those skills up on top. Don't forget how to do the ranging capabilities and utilizing that reticle, because it is a etched piece of glass that doesn't require any tech other than just doing basic math.
Yeah.
Basic high school math. So between that, knowing all your equipment and being able to stay effective within the competition world, the hunting world, because that makes you more of an ethical shooter.
Right.
And then if you are in a tactical role, just staying on top of your skill sets and making sure that you don't neglect the other versions of it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have a process, and then you have a backup plan, and then a backup to the backup, and however far down that list you want to go.
Where can guys find you at?
Instagram is where I'm most active. That's at Sidewinder_concepts. You can go to sidewinderconcepts.com, and then we have our own YouTube channel as well. So go and check us out over there at Sidewinder Concepts as well.
And also, if you want to get training with Adrian in person, go check out his website. He has a really good schedule, well worth the trip if you're going to travel, and well worth your time. We actually just finished up the 2024 Carbine Minuteman Symposium, and it was a ton of fun, tons of information that was put out to the group, and even I learned a few things. So make sure you go check out his website, go check out the classes that he has, so that way you can train to be more effective. And now I'm going to hand it off to Eric for an encouraging word to follow. Hey guys, hopefully you got something out of that video with Adrian about ranging, and we're able to take away some knowledge. And ranging is all about trying to build situational awareness, and forecast out what you need to engage, what you need to tackle. And I think it's important for us to also forecast what we do and how our actions can affect other people. And so, as I'm reading along in my own personal devotion, this is a really cool lesson that I'm learning myself. And it's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And it says, "Finally then, brothers," this is Paul speaking to the church in Thessalonica, He says, finally then, brothers, we ask and urge you in the Lord Jesus that just as you have received from us how you ought to walk and to please God, just as you are doing, that you do so more and more. For you know what instructions we gave you through the Lord Jesus. For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality, that each one of you know how to control his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like the Gentiles who do not know God, that no one transgress and wrong his brother in this matter, because the Lord is an avenger in all of these things, as we told you beforehand and solemnly warned you. For God has not called us for impurity, but in holiness. Therefore, whoever disregards this disregards not man, but God, who gives this Holy Spirit to you. Now, going back to chapter 3, verses 11. Now may our God and Father himself and our Lord Jesus Christ direct our way to you, and may the Lord make you increase and abound in love for one another and for all, as we do for you, so that he may establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus with all of his saints. And what I have, I'm studying right now near-death experiences and people who experience that very real medical phenomena. And the one common theme is that everybody says that all the things that we do in this life are linked. Something that you do, maybe you call somebody a rude name while you're driving and you're stuck in traffic. And the ripple effects of that can, ripple throughout multiple different lives and multiple different people. Or the good thing that you do. There's a story of this one near-death experience where this lady, she had passed away and she's looking at a life review, but what's cool is during her life review, she's able to see all the different people that were affected by her actions. And one of the things that she saw was, there's this lady in front of her, an older lady in the grocery store, and she's kind of scrambling through her notebook and her pocketbook and looking through her purse and trying to figure out and kind of getting a little bit nervous because her card is declining. And the lady who is having the near-death experience, she remembers as she's reliving this event, hey, I'll take care of it. I'll pay for it. And she pays for this old lady's groceries. What she didn't know is that this old woman later left that grocery store and drove to a food drive and was one of the volunteers that gave food to the homeless. And so you have this ripple effect of a good action or any action that happens whenever we do something, it echoes throughout eternity. And so, I encourage all of us, myself included, to do things that help other people, because what you do, it has a massive impact. It's funny how the world, will tell you through social media or through the news or through TV, you're not that big of a deal, you're just a number, you're not that significant, only these celebrities or these important figures are significant, you're not significant. And God doesn't say that. He says, you are the most important thing. He literally says, I knew you before I even formed you in the womb, I knew you. And what's fascinating is all these people who have these near-death experiences that go and experience that heavenly experience and they meet Jesus, they say, it was almost like I knew I had come home. It was where I had always been destined to be, and I felt like I had been there before. And God says, I knew you before you even formed in the womb. And so we are in this journey, in this race of life, to be able to live for God, to be able to change people's lives through love by bringing Jesus' love to other people. If you don't know who Jesus is and you're curious about what it's like to experience that love and be like, hey, I really want to, affect the world for good. I really want to change the world. I really want to be there for my fellow man and be kind to my neighbor. How can I do it and experience this love at the same time, a fulfillment that can never, be outdone by anything in this world? Dude, I'm telling you, Jesus is right there. He is right there in the room with you. He is right there sitting on the couch or sitting wherever you're sitting watching this video. This message is for you, man. And I want you to know that Jesus is trying to get a hold of you. He loves you. He wants that relationship with you. He wants to give you the love that he's always had for you before you were even born. He has been loving on you because you are his child and you are special and you are precious to him. So if you are feeling like I am nobody, don't listen to that lie. Everybody's going to tell you that you're nobody, or maybe social media or all these things make you feel like you don't have enough or your life isn't that great. I'm telling you, your life is precious and God loves you. So if you need to talk to somebody about what you're going through, or you're curious about who Jesus is, email me at team@barrelhandhatchet.com. If you support the work that we do, you guys can go to the front of the video and see how you can support the work that we're doing. But guys, my goal is to be a servant to you guys, to be able to bring knowledge, love, understanding, unity through this channel. Let God use this channel to be able to impact your lives and also help us all to be more prepared. So guys, train to be the eternal asset, be there for your fellow man, and I'll see you on the next one.